Puerto Escondido is a small town along the coast in Oaxaca that provides a perfect vacation spot for anyone that's looking for a little sun and sand. I always like to stay at a villa along the beach, something outfitted with a basic kitchenette because I like to cook. So I've invited some friends over to the hotel this evening for a meal. And my first plan of action is to head to the local market to pick up some fresh ingredients. You know, when I am in a beach community, I rarely expect to find a very nice market. That just seems to be the way it is in Mexico, with the exception of Puerto Escondido. I mean, this place is incredible. It's a real full-fledged market that's actually beautiful, and it's filled with all kinds of unique local ingredients. I mean, just look like these. These are the little tiny wild cherry tomatoes. People say that this is what the original tomato really looked like. And one of my absolute favorite heirloom tomatoes, we call this one the Zapotec pleated. At least that's the name of the seeds that we buy. I'm starting to put together what I want to serve tonight, but actually, to tell you the truth, it's hard because there's so much local variety to choose from. My idea was to use a beautiful fresh fish as inspiration for the whole meal, of course, along with the abundance of produce that I was finding at the market. Starting with tomatoes and limes, which are always staples of the Mexican kitchen, I found another stall that sold my favorite herb, hoja santa, and a tender bunch of purslane could be an unexpected salad to go along with the main course. I still needed to find a few staples at the market, like whole Mexican cinnamon sticks and cloves, that pungent red garlic that they love so much here in Oaxaca, and an assortment of dried chilies. On the way out, I picked up a clay griddle that could help me to make a really authentic roasty sauce to go along with the fish. The dairy farms all around Oaxaca produce some of the most delicious cheeses, and I thought it'd be a good idea to pick up a large chunk of queso fresco to garnish the soup that I had in mind, as well as some of that rich crema that could add beautiful flavor to a pot of beans. Muy bien. Muchas gracias, señora. Okay, I think I've got everything that I need. At least I'm pretty sure of that, except that I haven't found the fish yet. But I have a plan for the fish. When I'm looking for a fresh fish in a beachside location, sometimes I'll find it in a market, sometimes from the local fishermen. But today, I decided to go fishing myself at a nearby beach that's called Roca Blanca, just a little ways outside of Puerto Escondido. I think Roca Blanca is one of Mexico's best-kept secrets. It's an absolutely beautiful beach with gentle waves and brilliant sand, and there's rarely a crowd. Best of all, though, there are these little palapa restaurants that are set up along the sand to serve the local beachgoers. One of those restaurants is owned by a local fisherman, Jose Galan. Now, Jose has been free diving in these waters for over 30 years, and today he's taking me out to do a little spearfishing. Hopefully we'll bring back a catch that I can cook later tonight. Jose brought his boat close to shore and I swam out to meet him. We toured around the area while Jose scouted out a good place for fishing. Eventually, we found a spot that looked promising to drop anchor, but Jose said the sea is always full of surprises. Some days there's a lot of fish and some days there's nothing. We headed into the water ourselves to see what we could find. The water was beautiful, calm and warm, even if it was a little bit murky, but we could still see a wide variety of fish. This proved to be a fairly popular spot, too. Another spear fisherman swam by and showed off his catch, which included a few beautiful crustaceans. Jose was amazingly effortless as he dove down into the water, searching the depths for a good catch. It didn't take long for him to get one in his sights and fire away. With our catch in hand, we made our way back to the boat and headed to land. As we neared the beach, Jose dropped me off so that I could swim back to shore while he went to tie up the boat. While Jose prepared my fish, my mouth started watering as I watched the way Jose's wife prepares other fresh catches the fishermen bring in. Dishes like this beautiful garlicky mojo de ajo fish. Jose estimated that our catch, this beautiful robalo, weighed in at about 9 pounds after he had gutted and scaled it. Perfect size for the meal that I had planned for this evening. You could even see the points where the spear made its way through the fish. I couldn't wait to get cooking. It's rare I get a chance to cook with a fish this fresh. This is robalo. It's snook in English, but it's like a sea bass, very common in Mexico. And just look how incredibly fresh it is. That bulging, clear eye tells you pretty much everything. The first thing that I'm gonna do is to cut right behind where the gills are here, and then cut on the top side of the backbone. You can see the dark spot where the spear went through the fish. Now, this is where the rib bones start. So a lot of people will just go straight down through there. I'm gonna actually cut across it because I think it's easier for most people to do it this way if you're actually in the position to fillet a fish in your home. So I'll set that to the side, and then we're gonna flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. This carcass I'm going to use to make a stock out of. And you have to watch it because the bones are, especially those little dorsal fins, can be incredibly sharp. Now I'm going to break what's remaining there, and then we're going to put that into a pot. This is a pot that I didn't find here. It's actually one that I borrowed from the restaurant where I'm staying so that I could make this stock. Now I'm going to put it onto the stove here. Some pure water here to pour on top of it. And then I'm going to chop up some onions and garlic and add to the pot after I clean all this up. Cover the pot. Sometimes you have to improvise. And we're going to cook this for about 20-30 minutes after it comes to a boil. Now we're on to cutting up these fillets. I'm going to make two dishes. I'm going to make a soup, obviously, out of the bones, but I'm going to do what's called an aguachile here in Mexico, which is raw fish. I think that's the best way to serve this. And then I'm going to do a sautéed fish dish as well. So grab one of these fillets. Now, it's got to be cleaned here, so I'm going to cut the belly piece of it off because I don't really want that. Double check that I've gotten all the bones. I'm going to take the skin off of it, so I'll do that by taking my knife and making a slit all the way down to the skin, then flatten out the knife like that. And then I'm going to cut this into sort of what I would call sashimi-like slices. Now on to the main course portions. I'm going to leave the skin on for that, and I'm going to cut the belly off here. And now I'm going to cut this into 5 even pieces, and then I'll slide this into the refrigerator. Now on to the marinade for the aguachile. Let me explain to you what aguachile is if you haven't heard of it. I said already that it was raw seafood, usually shrimp or scallops, but we're using fish. But then it's got a very spicy lime juice marinade that goes onto it. So I'm here in Mexico. I get the opportunity to use the Mexican limes, the key limes, and I like their flavor the best when they're turning yellow. All limes will turn yellow, but we typically only get them in the green state in the United States. So I want to cut these up and then juice them. I'm going to juice them right into the blender jar so that I can measure how much. I'm going to need about 1.5 cups of this. Okay, now typically aguachile would be nothing more than salt and chili going in here. I'm going to use here the tuxtla chili, which is the local chili here in Puerto Escondido, and I've heard it's incredibly hot. So I'm not going to put very much of it. I can always put more later, so I'm just going to start actually with one of them in there. But I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction just because I found these guavas in the market. Now this is the yellow Mexican guava, and we occasionally see them in the United States. It's probably the most aromatic and delicious smelling tropical fruit I know. But I'm so lucky today to be able to use fresh guavas. Now these are completely ripe. Sometimes when I find them in the US, they're not ripe at all. So you'd have to leave them set out until they turn that beautiful yellow color. So I'm going to put a couple of guavas in here. And instead of cilantro, which is typically associated with this dish, I'm going to put just a little bit of mint. Put the top on the blender, and then I'm going to blend it until it's a smooth puree. You remember those guavas, if you haven't worked with them before, have a very hard seed in them. So I'm going to blend them, and then I'm going to strain out those seeds. Now the garnishes for the aguachile are going to be red onion and pomegranate, a little avocado, and more mint. Because I'm cooking in Oaxaca, I get to use one of my absolute favorite tomatoes. And what I love about it is it's both tart and sweet together with the most amazing tomato flavor. This is the Zapotec pleated. Here they just call it their tomato. And I'm going to use it to make a base for the soup. And I'm just going to cut it up, about half of what I got there, into pieces and put them all in the blender jar. Now I'm going to add garlic. So I have some peeled here to add to the blender jar. And then I'm going to turn it on and let it go until it's absolutely smooth. This is a thin-skinned tomato, so it'll blend up fast. Now I'm going to prepare our pan. I've already got it over heat here. So I'm going to coat the bottom of it with oil. Now, this is going to be sort of splattery. You should hear a good sizzle when this goes in. And we're going to let that cook until it's the consistency of tomato paste, stirring it frequently so it doesn't stick on the bottom. Now, for the soup, I'm going to put some chayote in there. It's going to be a simple fish soup, but I have some really delicious garnishes that will go into it right at the end. Also, this seed that's in the middle of it, in some places, they love to eat it. I usually pull it out if I'm going to do something like cubes of chayote for a soup, as I am today. And then I'm just going to cut it without peeling it into cubes. And we'll let these cubes simmer right along with this soup. For garnishes for this soup, I've got 3 really interesting things. First is the black pasilla. I'm going to cut that up after I've taken all the seeds out and toast it in a little bit of oil. I've got hoja santa, that beautiful herby anise flavored leaf that's so typical here in Oaxaca. I'm going to tear that up. And then the local fresh cheese wrapped in a leaf here. And I'm going to cube that to add just before we serve. My fish broth has simmered for about a half an hour now, and I'm going to strain it and take our broth and add it to the cooked down tomato mixture. That should be enough. I'll save out some of it to use for the sauce for the main course. And then to finish the simmering of the soup, I'm going to add the chayote and a little bit of beer. I found these absolutely beautiful purple tomatillos. I know most of us think of tomatillo as a green thing, but there's a variety of it that has this complex, beautiful flavor, and I saw them in the market here and decided to build a dish around them. Now I've already husked them, taken the little papery husk off like that, and then washed them all off. And I'm gonna roast them now, and I'm gonna roast them on this clay griddle that I bought. Now, you might think that that's kind of a weird extravagance for just a single meal to buy this clay griddle, but I paid a couple of bucks for it. And when you're in Mexico, it's fun to cook with some of the traditional cookware. Now, to protect the surface of that clay griddle from getting too marred by roasting tomatillos on it, I'm going to put a piece of foil down and then spread the tomatillos out on that foil. Now what we're looking for here is that they're going to soften completely and they'll get a little blackened and blistered, but we want them to get cooked all the way through. So I'm going to move them over just a little bit here to make some space for white onion that I'm going to roast right alongside it. Just a few slices of it should do what I'm looking for here. I think that all I'm going to get on there is 3 slices. So we'll move this to the side and next on to the chilies, because I'm going to make a chili sauce that is flavored with tomatillos and the roasted onion, but it's also going to have some pumpkin seeds. So I've got to toast chilies and toast pumpkin seeds. This is cascabel chili. If you've never had it before, it's the one that's in a completely round shape. We want to take the stem end out and then open them up so that we can get most of the seeds out of them before we toast them. I didn't have a mortar to crush the whole spices, so I roughly chopped the cinnamon stick and combined it with the black pepper and clove in a heavy plastic bag. Then I coarsely crushed everything together using the back of a pan. Then into the blender they went, with hopes that the blender will finish the job. Now when the little chilies were aromatic and sort of crispy looking, I pulled those off. The tomatillos now look like they're soft on one side, so I'm going to flip them over so that they can roast on the other side. Just pull up this onion. Now I'm going to slide all the little pumpkin seeds onto the hot side of the comal here, the part that doesn't have the foil on it, and I'm going to let those toast until they're a little bit darker. It'll give a very interesting texture and flavor to this finished sauce. With the spices already in the blender, I added those cascabel chilies along with the toasted pumpkin seeds and the grilled onion and tomatillos. I poured in some of the leftover fish stock and blended the whole mixture until it was completely smooth. That mixture got pressed through a strainer to catch any loose seeds or unground spices. Lastly, I poured it into a pan filled with hot oil, and once it was reduced and thick, I added enough fish broth to give the sauce the consistency of a cream soup. It just needed to simmer for a few minutes and get a final seasoning of salt. As the sun began to set, my wife Deanne put the finishing touches on a beautiful table for our guests. To serve the aguachile dish, I'm just laying a few slices of that thinly cut robalo into a shallow dish and then spooning on the spicy, tropical tasting lime marinade. And then sprinkling on top of that a little of that red onion, some leaves of mint, some diced avocado, and those pomegranate seeds, which unfortunately we've come to the end of pomegranate season, so they're not quite as red as I would like. I just want to say thank you all for coming and tasting my experiments here from the Puerto Escondido market. This is an aguachile. I've made it not with shrimp or scallops, but I've done it with this beautiful robalo that came out of the sea today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tuxtla chile, which is, raging hot. Just before serving the soup, I'm seasoning it with some salt and then throwing all of those delicious hoja santa leaves all torn up. Then garnish it with some of the fresh cheese cubes and then sprinkle a little bit of that toasted pasilla chili over the top of it. You get the flavor of the fish broth right away.
That's fabulous.
I want something really satisfying to go with the fish. So I've chosen peruano beans, those ones that have that almost potato-like flavor. And instead of enriching them with delicious fresh rendered pork lard or olive oil, I'm going to use some of that cream, that almost sour-like rich cream that they have here. And for a fresh garnish to go along with that fish, the verdolagas, the purslane that was in the market, was so incredibly beautiful and young and tender. I've decided to make a salad out of it, very simply dressed with a little bit of lime juice and salt. So I will say cheers to you guys again. It's been such a pleasure to be with you and to cook. Thank you. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have done it.
I'm good. Thank you. All right. That's how I like it.
That sauce is fantastic.
Wow. And the beans. I know. Amazing.
What was really fun for me was going shopping, going for the spearfishing, and then to come back and just put it all together and see it come to life. Without a doubt, the most beautiful fish I think I have ever cooked with in my life. So it was cool.